When I was 18, I got this job working for a company called Geosource in Houston. And the first thing that happened was I was sent to this guy's office. His name was Warren Williamson. And he was head of the Marine Division of Geosource worldwide. And he was one of the scarier looking characters that I've ever seen in my life. Warren he didn't have a full beard, but his beard grew up on his face so high that he had these hairy places right here under his cheeks, and he would shave, all the way up to him, but he'd leave this little hairy bit right under his eyes, and he had these bushy eyebrows, and he was always frowning. He was really a pretty nice guy once you got to know him, but he was a really hard old crusty guy that put off an image of just being mean as shit. and Warren, I went to work for Warren when I was 18. And the first thing he had me do was run all around Houston looking for parts for a ship motor. And he put me in a company Suburban. He said, go to this location and pick up this stuff, and then call me when you get there, and I'll tell you what to do. And I start work at 7 o'clock in the morning, and this is what I did all day long. And most of the places that I was going to were in the Ship Channel area, over there in East Houston by Navigation and Harrisburg, and over in there, all these marine companies that sold parts for marine motors. He had to overhaul the motor of a ship down in the Sea of Cortez, which was down, and every day that ship was down was costing the company gobs of money. So he had to get all these parts together, get them over to Mexico, and get that ship repaired right away. And so all day long I'm running around the Suburban. I go to some obscure little part maker, and they give me a few things, and I throw them in the car, and I call Warren. He says, okay, go to this place and go to that place. So I run frantically for 2 days all over Houston, Texas, and mostly, like I say, in that Ship Channel area. And then I get it all, I bring it all back, and Warren says, okay, now tomorrow show up here, and you're going to report to the loading dock here at the company. And there's a guy down there that'll tell you what to do. And so next morning I get down there, and the guy says, do you know how to drive a truck? And I said, yeah, sure. And I thought he meant a pickup truck. And he says, go down to Ryder Trucks down the street, and they have a truck there waiting for you to pick up. Go get it and bring it back here. And so I go down to Ryder, and they have a 21-foot bobtail truck. That's biggest truck I've ever seen, other than a tractor trailer rig. And the guy says, yeah, here's the keys, go get it. And so I go back out there, and it took me 20-30 minutes just to figure out how to get it out of the parking lot. And I drive it back down the Southwest Freeway to the office, and it's a miracle that I didn't run over anybody or hit any cars with it. I get it back there. They tell me to back it up to this loading dock, and I back this truck up, and it takes me a while to figure out how to do that. And then I go in there, I call up Warren Williamson, I say, okay, the truck's here. And he says, good, fill it up. And in loading bay number 23, there's all the stuff that needs to go inside that truck. Go ahead and fill it up. And so I go down to the warehouse, and the guy there that's at the desk, and I say, I need to fill up number 23. And he goes, okay, check out a forklift right here and take it over there. And I go, a forklift? And he said, yeah, there's nothing in there that you can load that truck by hand. You're going to have to use a forklift for everything. There's nothing a human can pick up physically. Everything is by forklift. I go over there to loading bay number 23 where my truck is, and there's giant piston sleeves and engine block parts and all kinds of heavy ship's equipment sitting in this bay. And I stand there looking at this forklift like it was some kind of a spaceship. I didn't know how to run it. And this guy came and helped me with a few basics and was real nice to give me some instruction. And it took me all morning to get that truck loaded, and I would get some of those things in there, and then I'd have to pull them out, and it took me quite a while to get it all together, but I finally got all that stuff inside there, and so I call up Warren. I say, Warren, the truck's loaded, and he says, okay, good. You're going to have to drive that thing to Nogales, Arizona, from Houston. Can you leave today? And I was like, are you kidding? And he said, no. Why don't you run home? You might want to change your clothes, and you're going to have to leave right away. I need that stuff in Nogales right away. You're gonna meet up with a Mexican trucking company, and they're gonna unload that truck and take all the parts down through Mexico to the Sea of Cortez, the city of Guaymas, but I need that stuff in Arizona, ASAP. So I go home. I tell my mom that I'm going to Arizona, and I come back. There's another guy that's going with me in the truck. Thank God he didn't want me to drive that alone. But me and David, we get in that truck and we drive all the way to Arizona as fast as we can. And we get it to Nogales, Arizona, and we meet up with the Mexican trucking company. They offload it. When we call Warren, we say, okay, we made it. We got the stuff here. He says, okay, take the truck back to Tucson and turn it in, and then give me a call. And I may have something else for you to do. So we take the truck back to Tucson, and we think we're going home to Houston. And Warren says, look, they're kind of short-handed on that ship down in Guaymas. So you guys are going to have to go and join the crew down in Guaymas. And so you want to take a taxi from Tucson back to Nogales and get in a Mexican cab, and it'll take you a few hours to get through the mountains, and you'll arrive in Guaymas sometime tomorrow morning. And I was like, but I don't really even have a change of clothes. He goes, well, go over to, Sears or Walmart or someone, buy whatever you need, I'll pay for it. But get down there as soon as you can. And so, okay, Warren, we'll get down there. So we do all that. We get in this cab, at 9, 10 o'clock at night. We go to Nogales, Arizona. We negotiate a Mexican taxi to take us to Guaymas, which is like 6-7 hours away. And we buy a case of beer, just because we're 18 years old, and that's what you do when you're on an adventure in Mexico in a strange taxi cab. So that cab driver pours us out of that cab, early in the early hours of the morning at a cotton dock where our ship was located. And we get on the Rob Ray 1, which is about a 250, 300-foot seismic exploration ship. And they had been waiting for us. And they immediately, as soon as we get on board, they cast off and take off into the Sea of Cortez, where we do seismic exploration for the next 3 weeks, me and David. And we meet all these crew members, most of whom are ex-military, which is a lot of who I worked with in my oil exploration career. And so we're doing these seismic lines. I'm working 6 hours on, 6 hours off. I never know if it's breakfast time or lunch time or dinner time. I mean, that's the craziest schedule for a person to do. And but I'm, every day I'm seeing the sun rise over the Sea of Cortez. We see dolphins and whales, and it's really a beautiful part of the world. And the off hours are long and boring. And the only things to do really are when you have free time on board the ship are to read or to watch whatever videos are in the video library, or to gamble and with the men. And I don't really gamble, but David did. And David quickly got into these poker games. And David had an ailment that he wanted to impress the crew members. And David and I were the youngest people on board the ship. And I was 18, David was 19, and David really had a desire to be a part of that crew and to be a part of that, you know, family. And so, first thing David does over the next 2 or 3 weeks is to gamble away his entire paycheck to these sharks at the table, and now he doesn't even have the money that he's been earning while we've been out there, and he gets a salary advance for his next term's paycheck, and has that in cash on him when we get to Guaymas, Mexico, back to the dock. And we tie up at the cotton dock there, and we do what all oil field guys do. We head straight for the nearest bar, and so we go to this seedy cantina with all kinds of seedy people hanging around, and we roll in there. We're a whole crew of 25, 30 guys, and there are crusty looking senoritas hanging around who all want to be our friend, and we order some beers, and we start talking, and David has put on his very best clothes. He's got these Ray-Ban sunglasses, and he's got a nice button-down shirt and some very expensive ostrich skin boots. He's got his whole paycheck in his pocket, and he's just all slicked back and perfumed up, and the rest of us got our jeans and t-shirt on. I mean, this place is nothing special, but David, he's dressed to impress, right? And so we get there, we're having a few beers, and it's 5 or 6 in the afternoon in this Mexican cantina, and David wants to impress the crew, and so he goes to the bar and he buys a giant tray of tequila shots that he's going to gift to all the crew members, and he has this old waitress walk around and offer these tequila shots to the men, and he's bought 3 dozen tequila shots or more. There's a whole huge tray of these things, some white rock gut tequila, and there's a couple of guys take one, but this is early in the evening, and the especially the Hispanic mechanic guys are trying to explain to David, and there's this one in particular, big old guy named Sonny. And Sonny is a great big Hispanic man, very, very wise kind of guy that I always like to talk to. And Sonny says, David, it's early in the evening, son. You don't want to get ahead of yourself here. We've got a long time, so take it easy. But David's not really having any. He tries to give these tequila shots to everybody, and nobody's really drinking too many of them. And so he sets them on the table, and he has 1 or 2 of them. And the next thing you know, David is up, dancing around the bar. He's taking another couple of shots, and now he's talking it up with these sleazy, whores in that place, and everybody's laughing. They're watching David. He's like the entertainment for the whole crew. He not only has not gained their respect, he's a source of amusement, and so David, after a couple of more shots, David like dancing cheek to cheek with this ugly woman, and they got a little Mexican oompa band that's playing there, and after he taking a couple 3 shots, he's taking shots regularly, because he's got this whole tray that nobody's drinking, and so the next thing you know, David ain't walking so well, and after that, he disappeared, and I didn't really think anything of it. I wasn't paying attention to where he went, but after a while, Sonny comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, Steve, hermano, your friend is he's in the men's room. He's not looking so good. You better go and check on him." And so I go back in this horrible men's room in this cantina, and it's about as bad as a men's room gets. and David is passed out on the floor. He's thrown up all over himself. And he's laying next to a urinal where a giggling Mexican man is going to the bathroom. You know, it's kind of splattering on him. All right? It's a horrible situation. And I get a little glass of water. I throw a little bit on his face. And I'm, David, I kick him a little bit. David, get up. I don't even want to touch him because he's covered with filth. And his nice clothes and everything are really, he's in bad shape. And so I get him up, I get him out of there, and he sort of pulls it back together, and he goes over by Sonny and the other guys on the crew and attempts to sit down back at the table. Sonny goes, no, man, no, you're not going to sit here with us now. You know, you stink, man. You got to get out of it. You need to go back to the ship, man. And David's like, no, I can handle it. You know, it'll be fine. You know, and he goes, well, you can't sit here with us. You need to go. You know, and Sonny and a couple of other these big crew members, they grab him by the arms and start dragging him out of the bar. I mean, he's been 86'd out of this place by these guys, and he's hollering at him, screaming obscenities at him, and they put him in a taxi cab, you know, and they say, look, man, you know, the one thing that you need to remember is you don't pass out in this cab. You'll be okay. We'll tell him where to go. But you don't pass out in this cab until you get back to the boat. Then you can get in your bed and go to sleep, you know, but take a shower first. And David is screaming obscenities at these guys. The cab rolls away, and we all wave goodbye to David. And we go back in the bar and have a few more beers and stay there till about 10, 11 o'clock at night. And then we go back to the ship and go to bed. And the next morning I wake up, and I got a little bit of a hangover, and I go upstairs to the wheelhouse of the ship. We're still tied up at the cotton dock. And my supervisor, Woody, who's a very thoughtful guy, big mustache, Woody's sitting up there looking out the window of the wheelhouse all by himself, smoking a cigarette. And he says, you boys have a big night last night? And I said, well, not really. You know, we just sat around, had a few beers. And he goes, well, I think some of you might have had a big night. And I go, why do you say that? And he goes, look out the window there. And I look out the window at the cotton dock that has all these bales of cotton out on it. And he goes, see right down there to the left. And I look down to the left, and David is sleeping on one of the bales of cotton. And he's naked except for his shorts. The cab driver has stripped him clean. All right, his clothes are gone, his boots are gone, his money's gone, and he's covered up with a little burlap bag, sleeping, passed out on this cotton dock, and Woody says, oh, in that suite, or that cab driver gave him a little blankie to sleep with, you know, and he's all curled up there, you know, and he goes, you better go get him and bring him inside. And so I go down and wake David up, and David is devastated, and he doesn't know what happened. Kept saying, I never drank tequila before, and so I walk him across the gangway of the ship, and you've got to go back up the hallway and through the galley to get to the cabin that we were staying in. And as we walk through the cabin, and David has got his little burlap bag, you know, wrapped around his waist, you know, mustering as much dignity as he can. And all those guys that were in the bar were having breakfast in the galley when he walked through. And they just howled laughing at him. And it was about as emotionally devastating a situation as I've ever seen. He was in tears when he got back there. And we all were preparing to go on break. We were getting on a plane to go back, but David had to stay because he had gotten an advance on his money. And now all that was gone, and he had to work for money that he didn't even have anymore. And so the moral of this story that I got from my first cruise in oil and gas exploration was try not to be a crowd pleaser. Try not so hard to impress. You wind up like David. And that was my first cruise.